vanished with the first hit. Something had snapped in him, and he'd beaten Josh, knelt on his arms so he couldn't protect himself, and smashed his fist down over and over until his nose was broken, his face bruised and bloody. It had been terrifying, more terrifying than anything his mother had done, because his prediction had been wrong. Something had changed in his father, and there was no telling what that would bring. It would have been better if they hadn't been caught, if they'd snuck back in at daybreak after the fight had burned itself out. Even if they'd been found missing in the middle of the night, nothing would have been said. Nothing was ever said afterward. It was as if the fights were a secret the Crewe family kept from itself. He dropped the book bags over the veranda. The tree was there, dark in the chill breeze of an autumn night, and he put a practiced foot on the railing and swung a leg across and felt for the broken branch stub that was the only foothold on this side of the tree. He braced himself against the veranda rail and pushed off, balanced for a brief second only on the foot on the branch stub, and then he caught the tree trunk. At least it hadn't been Susie beaten that night. Josh had been angry at his sister for getting them caught. It wasn't fair that he was the only one punished, and the injustice of it burned deep in him. It was always that way. He was the scapegoat, and she the favorite. It was his own fault. He took the blame, protected her, diverted their parents' attention away from her transgressions because he was older, stronger, tougher than she was. It was what he had to do. He didn't know why, and the knowledge of what he was doing didn't make it hurt less. He scrambled down the tree trunk, balanced on the fence for a second, and hopped to the ground, then turned back to look to see if Susie was following him. She edged out around the veranda railing and stopped. For a moment he thought she had frozen again, but she had learned her lesson and reached her foot out, feeling for the branch stub. She was shorter than he was, and it was a harder stretch for her. Her foot found the branch, and then she was straddling the gap 15 feet up. She moved to shift her weight to grab the tree trunk, swayed dangerously, and clutched the veranda railing to steady herself. "I can't, Josh." He could hear the fear in her voice. "You've done it before." "I'm stuck." She was on the verge of tears. "I'll come and get you." He couldn't do anything for her, he knew, but he had to show her he was trying. He climbed up the fence and shinnied up the tree, reached out for her. "Here, just grab my hand." She looked at him, her eyes large and frightened. Angry voices came from inside the house, muffled by the walls, and she moved all at once, suddenly motivated. He grabbed her wrist and pulled, and then she was safe in the tree, and they were climbing down, the rough bark tearing at their hands until they were on the ground. "Are we going to the park?" She was calmer now as they walked down the driveway, leaving the scene behind them. The park was where they usually waited out the fights. "Somewhere else." He picked up the book bags and handed hers to her, then slid a hand into his pocket to verify that the medicine bottle was still there. "We'll get in trouble when we get back." "Not this time." He helped her slip the straps over her shoulders. They walked down the familiar street in silence, past the old towering trees and the lit windows of the neighboring houses, feeling a sudden nervousness. Getting out when he had to was something he had been ready for, just a variation on the familiar theme of getting out of the way, but as bad and frightening as things were at home, they were also known quantities, and the world opening up before him was vast and unknown and full of threats he could only imagine. He resisted the urge to turn around and look back at his house, knowing he would never see it again. Something tugged at him, the desire for warmth, for comfort, for safety. The house was all those things, when his parents weren't fighting. When they weren't, it was even a nice place to live, bright and spacious. Everything he owned was there. His friends lived in the neighborhood. He fingered his cheek. It had been months, maybe longer, though the memory of the flaring pain of his father's fist never seemed to leave it. He blinked back tears that came too easily at the memory. It was dangerous for him to stay now, because next time it would be worse. He had to leave, and he couldn't leave Susie behind to face their parents alone. "Where are we going?" Susie's question was plaintive. "Far away."